Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us today at the third WYCUP Affiliates Council meeting of our quarterly meetings this year. Today's session will be presented in English with both Spanish and Portuguese interpretation available. So please check the bottom of the screen to select the appropriate language option. Por favor, noten que estaremos ofreciendo el servicio de traducción al español y portugués, entonces solo hay que elegir el botón al porción abajo de la página. Today, we are exploring the topics of climate resiliency and sustainability. And I have been fortunate at World Council to participate in an innovation team exercise recently, where much of our work is focused on the issues surrounding climate resilience and sustainability. So as a group, we've been reviewing some of the work that's being done internationally to define and set standards for sustainable finance and impact reporting. We're looking at the potential for credit unions to support this green transition to the green economy and to build more sustainable communities. And we're also looking at how best to mobilize our global network to address these shared challenges that we all face. And so around the world, we see that our financial cooperatives are centers of economic activity in our local communities. And we have connections with people involved all across the employment spectrum. We engage with people from all walks of life. We support small businesses and local entrepreneurs. We're helping families purchase homes and make improvements. We're a key resource for financing vehicle purchases in many countries. And so all of these touch points connect back to the issues of sustainability and the transition to a green economy. And we see great examples of credit unions that are helping businesses and entrepreneurs convert to more sustainable practices, credit unions that are helping people install solar panels on their homes, and credit unions that are incentivizing the purchase of electric and hybrid vehicles. And I believe that our financial cooperatives are really ideally positioned to support this transition. And at the same time, it's a great place for young people like all of you to lead the way. And so today I've invited several leaders from the US credit union system to share their insights with us on how financial cooperatives can work together to build more sustainable communities. We have with us Neda Arabshashi, who is Vice President of the Inclusive Center for Resilience and Clean Energy, where she is working to build a network of credit unions that are committed to designing and scaling solutions to climate change, with this ultimate goal of promoting affordable and sustainable energy for all people. Neda has over 17 years of experience in the clean energy and sustainable space. Most recently, she served as the Chief Operating Officer at the energy startups called Radiator Labs and Block Power, where she helped to create financing and access to clean energy and energy efficient retrofits for low and moderate income building owners. And prior to these roles, she's led the energy program at the Clinton Global Institute, where she partnered with public and private sectors to build commitments to low carbon energy solutions that include developing resilient energy grids and solar workforce development. So Neda, great to have you here. Welcome to the WYCUP Affiliates Council. We've been chatting a lot over, well, the last year probably or longer, about opportunities to connect WYCUP and your work at Inclusive. And I'm happy to have you here finally with some of our colleagues, and we'll be recording this session to share with our wider global audience that connects across time zones that make it difficult to participate today. But thank you for joining us. And maybe we could start, could you tell us a bit about your work at Inclusive Center for Resilience and Clean Energy?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tom, for inviting me to speak. And thanks to everyone for being here. It's so great to get a peek into this community. I think that the work you're doing is really exciting and inspiring. So yes, happy to share a bit more about Inclusive and our Center for Resiliency and Clean Energy. So Inclusive is a membership network for credit unions across the US, Puerto Rico, and US Virgin Islands. And we are here to help low and moderate income people and communities achieve financial independence through credit unions. And our network is almost 500 credit union members across 47 states, Washington, D.C., Puerto Rico, US Virgin Islands. And collectively, our credit union members serve over 18 million people and represent more than $255 billion in assets. And what's most important and exciting is that 75% of our members are low-income designated credit unions. 58% are community development financial institutions. 30% are minority depository institutions. 20% of our members are cooperativas based in Puerto Rico. So we have, you might notice that added up to more than 100%. Many of our members have more than one of those designations. They're very, very committed to serving their communities and providing an environment where folks who've been excluded from our mainstream financial system can have access to financial growth, financial empowerment. So we saw that our members were responding to climate change because they had to. Their communities were getting impacted by hurricanes or storms or floods or fires, and they had to respond. And so we saw a need and an opportunity to proactively support them in that work. Mm-hmm. In 2019, we launched our Center for Resiliency and Clean Energy, and we actually held the launch at the UN Federal Credit Unions United in Sustainability Summit. And you'll hear from Tom and Liz today. You'll hear more about their work in that space, but it's really exciting to partner with UN Federal Credit Union. And our work is in the Center for Resiliency and Clean Energy involves building a network of credit unions that are positioned to address climate change, develop financial solutions, loan products that can help their communities to be prepared for climate change, and create a network where all of the credit unions are working together, supporting each other and learning from each other so they can all move more quickly in the space of climate finance. And we think there's a real opportunity and also a real responsibility that credit unions have in this space. And we'll talk more about that throughout this session.
Thank you for that introduction. And, you know, we talk at WYCUP so often about how our network is our net worth. And I think that you exemplify the power of networks to bring credit unions together to address these shared challenges and do it in a way that's more effective, more efficient, and gives credit unions more resources than they could achieve on their own. So I'm happy that we have you within our space as one of many support networks that exist for credit unions. So thank you for that. You know, in the news lately, it seems like every day there's news of more flooding, more storms, you know, and seeing you know, the impacts of climate change. And I'm wondering, from your perspective and your work in the US and Puerto Rico, what types of climate impacts are credit unions experiencing, and how are they responding with resiliency?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really true, and it's very terrifying. So we have seen, you know, depending on where the credit unions are located, they are impacted by the different climate events that happen. So our credit unions that are located along the Gulf of Mexico, along the coast, they're impacted often by hurricanes and loss of power. And so they've developed these kind of very proactive resiliency solutions where they'll send a team to another location out of state so that they can be in a place where they can be assured that they'll be able to continue to provide services and stay online for their members. Because, you know, if your entire community gets hit by a hurricane, most people will need access to cash. They'll need to be able to access their credit union. And if the credit union employees can't provide support, then then they're going to have to shut down. And so we see that members kind of planning for climate events and having these detailed sort of resiliency structures in place. We also see our members thinking proactively about, for example, there's a credit union in New Mexico where one of their branches had to close because it was hit very heavily by wildfires. And the entire community that where their members live was heavily, the houses were heavily destroyed by the wildfires. So they're now thinking about developing a loan product that will be a low-cost loan for rebuilding the homes in that area, but rebuilding them with fire-resistant building materials. So they're starting to think really specifically about what is needed in their community. And we work with, dozens and dozens of credit unions that each have looked at their own community and developed their own financial products and also resiliency plans, similar to what I mentioned in New Orleans and New Mexico in this area. The other thing I want to say is that we'll talk about this, I think, a little bit more, but as these climate impacts are hitting the communities, they're also, community members are experiencing with grid interruption, unstable electric grid, they're experiencing a lot of risk around things like, people who need electricity for their medicine or other sort of like health reasons. But also places that have gotten so hot that it's like life-threatening to lose electricity, or it's life-threatening because people don't have air conditioning and suddenly will have many, many days in a row where it's very hot. So credit unions are also thinking about that. What are the changes that are happening that mean that their members need to maybe purchase something different, like a solar powered backup generator or an air conditioner? So there's also that kind of response.
I think one of the great things about credit unions being locally based is that they can address the unique circumstances that are arising out of these climate related impacts, because it's not consistent everywhere. Every community is facing different challenges. And I think that's really one of the strengths of bringing credit unions together to look at how together we can find solutions for people that are facing these challenges. The other part of the kind of the thing that we're all experiencing kind of at the same time around the world, it feels, is, this perfect storm where inflation is coming together with, some of the impacts from the war in Ukraine to really increase prices of everything, but specifically of energy. And so I understand there's this concept of energy burden, and I'm hoping that you can share a bit with us about what does that mean, energy burden, and how are low-income communities most impacted by this in the United States?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So energy burden refers to the amount of a household income that's spent on energy costs. In the US, low-income households have an energy burden that's 3 times higher than non-low income households. They're paying 3 times higher percent of their gross household income on energy. And it's even worse for communities of color. Black households spend 43% more of their income on energy costs than white households in the US. Hispanic households spend 20% more. Native American households spend 45% more. So there's a really big imbalance in the energy burden, not just by income level, but also by race and ethnic group.
So, another opportunity for credit unions to kind of be that equalizing factor to help kind of, level out those burdens across their community and support those people that need that the most. I think that kind of it connects in with this idea of what's fair and the concept of justice. And so, in terms of climate justice, how does that work? What are why are credit unions, in your mind, so well positioned to work towards climate justice within their local communities?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. Climate justice is the concept that the impacts of climate change are not distributed evenly or fairly. There are communities that are hit harder by climate change, and they tend to be the communities that are already the most vulnerable, and also the communities that might not have additional financial flexibility to recover when they're impacted by climate change. So we see credit unions, well, first of all, they are kind of thinking at each step of the way that climate events hit people. So they're thinking about how can we proactively help our members to lower their energy costs, have access to renewable energy. So lower their energy costs through energy efficiency and access to renewable energy, and how can credit unions provide affordable loans? And also often, how can they connect their members to subsidy programs or other types of government support? And then they're thinking about, like I mentioned, when there is a disaster that hits, how can they ensure that the members of the credit union have continued access to the credit union's financial resources, so that, one thing we saw in Puerto Rico was that there was, when Puerto Rico was hit by Hurricane Maria, the banks closed and people didn't have access to money. There was the telecommunications were down, the ATM machines were not available, and people did not have access to money. And the cooperativas were able to open much more quickly and provide people with access to their money much more quickly, which is life-saving in that kind of circumstance. So credit unions, I imagine all over the world, are thinking like that and thinking about how can they stay consistently open. They also, we're seeing more and more credit unions thinking about helping their members to not just think about emergency funds, but setting aside money for disaster funds in case something happens. But many credit unions are starting to provide emergency disaster loans if their members need that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like I said, the third part is the rebuilding. So once a community is hit by a climate event, there is going to often be rebuilding that needs to happen, and credit unions are getting involved with financing for rebuilding in a way that's affordable, easy to access. Often people will need money relatively quickly to rebuild. So yeah, they're thinking very comprehensively.
Yeah. You mentioned, a number of things that you're seeing in terms of trends. What else are you seeing in terms of trends in green lending and sustainability initiatives among the credit unions that are part of your network in the US and Puerto Rico?
Yes. So it's been pretty exciting. We've looked at kind of a detailed research of what credit unions are doing across the US. And we've seen that there are 321 credit unions across the US and Puerto Rico that offer green loan products. So what's a green loan product? It's a loan to finance projects that can reduce greenhouse gas emissions and energy burden, and often energy and water use. So solar, rooftop solar panels, electric vehicles, water efficiency and energy efficiency for the home. Oh, thanks, Tom. And we have had a little bit of insight into the type of lending that's happening. So out of the 321 credit unions that offer green loan products, they collectively represent over 17 million members and over $283 billion in assets. So they have a lot of reach. And we're proud to say 83 of those are credit unions are inclusive members. But what we've seen is out of these credit unions, 94 gave us their data on the loan volume, and they have originated 37,000 green loans in the past 3 to 5 years, a total of over $2.7 billion in loans in this space. And one thing we do is that we provide training. So we've trained 300 lenders across the US in how to develop green loans.
That is really exciting, and the growth that we're seeing in this area in terms of the financial products that credit unions are creating and making available is incredible. But I suspect that it's just a drop in the bucket, and we're just getting started, and that there's so much more opportunity here. And so I really appreciate you joining us and sharing a bit about the work of your network. I put in the chat a link to Inclusive Center for Resiliency and Clean Energy. And I encourage folks that are on this call today to reach out and to learn more, because this, I think, is really a great opportunity for credit unions worldwide to come together and to share experiences, to compare notes, to share products and documentation of what has worked well within your credit union. And it's great to have you as this center point of collaboration specifically on that issue. So thank you for joining us, Neda, today. I appreciate it. It's great to see you again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Stick around. I think we might have some questions at the end for you. So continuing, also with us here today, I mentioned are Elizabeth Felipe and Tom Curian from United Nations Federal Credit Union in the United States. This is UNFCU is an American credit union headquartered in New York City, with representative offices in Geneva, Vienna, Nairobi, and in Rome. So it's a credit union with offices all around the world. They serve 175,000 members globally, with a field of membership that includes the United Nations, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund. And for the sake of transparency, I should let you all know that I am also a member of UNFCU. So I have a particular affinity to this credit union. And it's great to have Liz and Tom with us today. Liz currently serves as the Senior Manager of Business Development and Media Relations, Marketing, and Global Affairs. And Tom serves as Vice President of Enterprise Information Security. Liz and Tom, welcome to the WYCUP Affiliates Council. It's great to have you here with us today.
Thank you, Tom.
Liz,
Pleasure.
Thank you. Liz, I've known you for a few years now, and as a member of UNFCU, I'm really happy to see the extent to which the credit union has prioritized this issue of sustainability. Could you share with our group here today a bit about your journey to sustainability at UNFCU, and how did that focus come about?
Sure. Well, again, thank you so much. It's really just such a pleasure to be able to tell our story and to really open up this conversation about sustainability and the need now, certainly with this being an inflection point. UN reports showing the dire straits, and we're all witnessing around the world these extreme weather events. Now more than ever is the time to weave corporate social responsibility into strategy, into business plans. So our journey began humbly, even though we're a large credit union. It started about 15 years ago with 5 very passionate volunteers, and it has really grown into a movement. Now more than half, some 350 or so staff at UNFCU and in our global offices as well participate. organically grown base of volunteers, and it has just been so exciting to watch the evolution, and the journey itself really took of just of insight from various experts as well. We have on I can put it into the chat, a site, and it is the uisnetwork.org site, which is a roadmap, and we've really followed this roadmap for our own journey, and it involves 5 phases, if you will. It starts with awareness, really just the 5 passionate volunteers building this this goodwill, this momentum, small but interesting, getting out into the community events. Recognition for World Environment Day really took off at UNFCU. We brought in and had the honor of having some wonderful UN speakers really explain and detail the growth of the Sustainable Development Goals. So our movement, though began 15 years ago, evolved from this small group to 2015, a global sustainability program that was much more in line with the SDGs, which I think it was about a month after were formally announced. So we were right there on target with our sponsor. So the 5 phases, going back to that, is the awareness raising, looking at the consideration, really building a business case, the ROI, the cost benefit for your senior management to take a look at, driving this engagement of the movement. And then it's really taking it to that organizational commitment, that global sustainability program, the official movement, looking at integrating into sustainability into all aspects, all business lines, and then really looking at where we are today, which is this advocacy movement of the United in Sustainability Network, which is right now comprised of about 60 core credit unions in North America, ranging from Hawaii to Florida. They have Canadians from British Columbia to Puerto Rico. So it really has been our effort to bring everybody together. And we heard just some great examples and thought this is, as part of our research, it seemed that now is the time to really share these best practices and these stories. So that is the point at where we are now, which is our United in Sustainability Summit, which is really the capstone, the highlight of the year for us, bringing organizations like Inclusive, like WYCUP, and stories of resiliency to the fore with United Nations experts as well. So it is, it's just this steady growth. And again, we needed some support along the way. Business consultant who provided us with the roadmap of standards and benchmarks that are needed to be followed. Important then identifying those gaps, bringing the stakeholders together. Having an executive sponsor was really key, really at the beginning of the efforts to get that buy-in from the top. And then it really evolved from there with our board policy governance, developing into the expanding role of the CSR. So it has just been an incredible journey, and we're still on it. We definitely want to build the momentum for the network, and hope that that credit unions worldwide will take part and join us at the summit. We'll be sending out more information very soon on all of this. So
good. That was my my next follow-up question for you, is
taking
whether
place
or
in
not November. Okay.
14th,
Okay,
hybrid
November
event.
14th. Excellent.
Back
Excellent.
at the United Nations, so virtual as well as on site. And really looking forward. We are accepting applications through about mid-month of September for credit unions if they'd like to present ideas and themselves to tell their own stories. We'd love that. And I'll put in the chat. It's info@uisnetwork.org is our email box. So that's a great
Okay,
addition from
that's
all
good.
of you.
Having attended that event for several years, I know that the stories that are shared there and highlighted are first rate. I mean, really inspiring and provide some really great examples to share and for credit unions, hopefully to think about replicating in their own communities. So that's really exciting. And
Really
it's
inspirational.
yeah, it really is. And I think from UNFCU's journey, I think it's great to see how, just starting with that small group of 5 employees, I think you said, that had this interest and the passion, how that's grown into really a global exchange and a global network now. So congratulations on that. And it's really great to have the opportunity to connect in and be part of what you've done. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. And I just wanted to quickly add that sustainability is a core value as well. Embracing sustainability, that has really solidified the effort. And it involves not only just the greening aspect of it, but also DEI, the works of the UNFCU Foundation, which focuses on the alleviation of poverty for women and youth, looking at this Sustainable Development Goal number 1. I'm sure your audience is very familiar with SDGs. These are the 17 targets that are aimed to combat the great challenges of the world of inequality, quality education, wellness, partnerships for the goals, which is SDG number 17. That's my favorite one. I think is where credit unions can really play a strong part in bringing our collective voices to the forefront on advancing the SDGs. And there are tons of resources. Again, our UIS network site does continue to post and have a bevy of tools. The UN itself has the UN Global Compact, which is a tremendous advocacy movement, the largest one. Some 16,000 or so participants, and all working together, lots of resources there. We really used a wonderful tool called the SDG Action Manager. You don't have to be a member of the Global Compact to find it and to take it, and it does identify gaps, and we took it. It's quite a lengthy piece, but it is so instructive just to be able to see, and not just again on climate action, SDG number 13, but also your diversity and other labor and human rights. So it's just a terrific exercise. We learned a lot, and it has helped us along the way. So I just wanted to mention that.
That's interesting and helpful. I put the link to that SDG Action Manager in the chat box for others to check out. And, I think it's been very interesting over the last couple of years in my work at World Council outside of the US and around the world. Increasingly, I'm seeing where credit unions are including in their annual reports and in their reporting the links to how their actions are addressing the sustainable the development goals with the connections to the logo. And it's becoming very consistent that there's a real alignment between those sustainable development goals and our values within credit unions. It's a perfect match. And there's so many areas where our credit unions can be supporting those initiatives. So that's really a great resource and great to see.
Yep,
Tom,
impact reports are really important. Transparency, mapping to those goals. I think we've got 14 out of 17 where we identify, and we really hold ourselves, very much accountable. And the information is available on our website, as well as the Global Compact. So we're happy to share more.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Thank you. Tom, a question for you now. And I think I had already shared my cheerleader rally for credit unions in the transition to the green economy. But I'd like to hear what you think, or what do you think that, or why do you think that credit unions are uniquely positioned to lead us in sustainability? What is it about our credit unions that is so perfectly aligned and connected to this?
I think it's a couple of things. I think, and many things I think you've already covered already, Tom, and you've said, so many of you have already said some of the words that I think are really critical. First of all, you said values, right? I think cooperatives, credit unions, if there's anything, we're about community, we're about values. That's sort of our role in the financial services sector largely, right? And I think it's not only just part of the DNA and why cooperatives and credit unions were created in the first place, but I truly believe in our UIS. I think if you go to that site, you can see it. We think it's a competitive advantage for credit unions and cooperatives. That's the story we're telling to our members. Why come to us instead of a for-profit financial institution or a more traditional bank? Because we're here uniquely, as Netta was talking about before, understanding our community. We understand the unique needs. You're a member of UNFCU, which put me, I didn't know that. So I was like, oh, I hope we're doing a good job. But we uniquely understand our members, and I'm sure all of everyone attending here understands and uniquely targets their solutions to the community they're serving. And I even see Matthew Fitzgerald there. He's got his people helping people. That's a very common theme within credit unions in his little image there. We believe that is what credit unions are about. We think it's in our DNA. We think it's our competitive advantage and what connects our members, our customers to the institution. And we should reflect that in not only the way we operate, but in the products we serve, and kind of exhaustively around corporate social responsibility, obviously environmental sustainability, but we talked briefly about diversity, inclusion, about just general good governance and fiduciary responsibility. All of these things, I think prioritizing those things are what credit unions and cooperatives do. And I think the last really important thing is all of us here, everything Netta was talking about, everything we're doing here in this group, and for the people who have attended our summit before, inherently cooperatives and credit unions, we really collaborate a lot together, right? And we share best practices. We're not competitive necessarily with each other. Often our fields of membership and our customer bases don't directly compete with each other. And we think that provides us a unique opportunity to cooperate and collaborate so that our collective impact is greater. And we can share with you, as Liz was sharing, through our UIS network site, we can share with you all of our best practices. It's one of a big thing for us, and through our summit, everyone share information with each other to help credit unions through either partners like Inclusive or with each other and our own inter-networking, help credit unions kind of bring to the forefront what is inherent in us, right? Our desire to serve our communities, to be focused on the values of our communities and serving them even before necessarily a profit motive. So I think it's just in our DNA. It's our competitive advantage.
It is absolutely. It's in our DNA, and I think it's our understanding of our community and our strong connections to our community that really make that difference. And you mentioned how collaboration is really the piece that makes us unique. And from my perspective at World Council, I see examples of this all the time around the world. And it's really a big part of our efforts at WYCUP is to find and create that space for young people to come together and collaborate. And I think this issue is the perfect one to inspire young people, to motivate them, to organize, and to get them more involved in the solutions and the change that needs to happen in our communities. And so, Tom, I'm wondering, how do you see the opportunity here? How can young professionals help their credit unions get started on these sustainable journeys? Where do they begin?
I'm so glad you said sustainable journey. Actually, it's actually Liz mentioned it. It's also on there. First, Liz, a couple of things Liz already said, right? Which was that at UNFCU, the original genesis of what is today our global sustainability program, which UIS is sort of our external reflection of that, started with 5 individuals. At that time, we were pretty young. Right? At that time, we were relatively young individuals, or that group of individual 5 were, really kind of began that. And began especially when the credit union itself had not really formally adopted sustainability and corporate responsibility into the full operation of the business as it is now. So one thing we do is provide this sustainability journey link. So on that UIS website, we do have a journey map, basically reflecting our progress. And you can we try to split it into the phases Liz was talking about, so that you can, various young professionals here can kind of see maybe where they are in their organization and help be that catalyst. And even if your organization you're working with has not really adopted this at all, there's really nothing formal going on, that first phase of creating goodwill, that's of cooperating and volunteering together, that's a 0 to no investment step that can start an organization realizing the benefits that it gets from engaging its staff and engaging its members in either volunteering or in low-cost environmental steps and recycling activities, cleanup activities. If you're in an area that has had environmental impacts, maybe contributing in cleanup or other ways that you can serve the community. That kind of individual organizing, any young professional can engage in, and it creates both the opportunities for the, I think it's a great way to distinguish and create some meaningful impact in your organization and awareness in your organization. And I think it's something that young professionals and young members, I think we'll talk about that in a few minutes, right? Really connect to. But I think how they can do it, that sustainability journey, we've tried our best to map that out and provide, as Liz was mentioning, various resources that sort of align to those phases. So if you want to go to that, it's in the chat now, that sustainability journey. We hope that helps everybody engage in this topic. And again, as Liz was mentioning, if there's anything you want to share, Liz, did you put the email in yet? Yeah, but if yep, there is. So if you have ideas or other resources you want to share, your own stories, that you think you want us to kind of promote on the site, we're happy to do that as well.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And I think, again, it's a perfect example of our willingness to share. This journey that you've mapped out here, I think, is a really great starting point for others that are looking that are inspired by these topics and these issues and trying to figure out, how do I do something like that within my own credit union? I think young people are perfectly positioned to take this and run with it and to build that out in their credit union. So thank you for those resources. I have one additional question for Liz, but as I ask that, I would hope that folks that are attending, for the participants today, think about questions that you have, because we'll have the opportunity at the end for, I think, a few questions. So, but until then, Liz, here at WYCUP, so much of our work is focused on raising the voice of young professionals on the global stage, and at the same time, empowering young people to be part of the solution to our shared global challenges. And so it's really hard to imagine a more significant shared global challenge than our sustainability, right? Our global sustainability. So how can credit unions raise awareness among their young members, and how can we help get this message out about our values and inspire this sense of a collective purpose among young people?
It's important to use all communications channels. We know that social media is a great one. We've been using LinkedIn, just again to connect with a wide range of people who have expertise and questions. Again, the network is really, we find ourselves really in the convener role, to bring people together as an incubator of ideas. And then the network, which is jumpstarting again in the fall, will provide the opportunity to learn more from subject matter experts. Our consultant many times is taking part. So there is the strength of the network, which is growing and a great opportunity. We'd love to get insight from everybody here. We also, the events, as I mentioned, the UN Global Compact, great resource with modules and trainings, and we know there's great training from Inclusive as well, just to be able to follow through and understand some of these best practices and standards, and just really, again, I mentioned the communications on your website, and it's really a brand, to Tom's point, a differentiator there, and in terms of spreading the good word via recruiting. And we know from surveys, I think Gartner being one of them, that just to be able to join an organization, work, and feel that it's a purposeful community that I'm working for, and then to be able to feel that your values are being represented along the way is so important. And we're seeing this across the board in our own recruiting efforts. But just again, to really, you're doing great work, post it, whether it's the impact report or even just the small steps that you're taking. If there is something that you're taking part in with your community, to let people know. If your investments, you have decarbonized those, or moved to create a new green product or service. Again, just try every channel to get the word out. And then again, this convening role that we play, along with just the great works being done across the country, and now getting more insight from the world, I think will take everybody to a whole other level.
Yeah, I think, and you mentioned reporting on this progress, and I think one element of that is the data, and having a keen eye to what is data that we should be gathering across all credit unions, really to help us collectively measure our impact, and in doing that, be able to create some new messaging for all of us collectively about the role of credit unions in this transition to a green economy, and ultimately the impact that we're achieving in creating more sustainable communities. So thank you for that. It's great, great information. So that, concludes the mini interviews that I had kind of prepared for our group here today. And I'd like to open up in the last few minutes here for any questions that we might have from the participants joining us from around the world. Any thoughts or observations, any examples that you would like to share from things that your credit union is involved with, or that your local youth networks are planning or involved in? Please feel free to share them either in the chat or unmute yourself and share directly.